Hi, everyone, and welcome to Potentials. This is Ligia and Ed Kuberski. We're going to be doing another wonderful episode of the WingMakers. And we have a few more to do after this, but how many are there altogether? 6
Yeah, there's
episodes?
six in total, Legion, and we're this will be number three.
This is number
S-
3.
Yeah, number three.
So,
So we're once we get through this, we're about halfway through it all. And just so everyone knows, this is all from the website that Legia's going to have a link to, I think, on
yes.
the show here, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I've gone through and I've highlighted just the stuff that kind of stood out for everything that we're talking about. And this time, like last time, we're going to have Ligia read it because she's got such a beautiful voice. And
That always
yeah,
embarrasses me when you say that.
that's why I say it, because now you're laughing, right? I hate
Oh,
seeing you laugh.
yeah.
So it's all good. And you do have a
Well,
beautiful voice. It's much better
thank
than
you.
mine. Let's
I
just put it to you that
I
way.
appreciate it. Thank you. Um, okay, so I'm gonna scroll in and we can read
Yeah.
it together, everyone. Because
Yes.
whoever, and if you're at your desk like I used to be when I would listen to podcasts, and you can't read, I will read it very kindly to you. So, uh,
Yeah. So we're going to start, Ligia. You see where the line is, and then we go from that line
Wingmakers,
downwards.
this one,
Yeah, so
yes,
Wingmakers 3, right? And so everything
right.
from there onwards is what we're going to dive
Okay.
into today. Yep.
In the case of our first time capsule, it will introduce indisputable evidence that a time shifted civilization visited Earth and left its calling card. These time capsules will eventually act as a communication bridge between contemporary humans and their future selves. That's really cool.
Mm. Yeah.
The Wingmakers
Exactly.
will act as the responsible elder brother who returns to help the next 2 generations of humans build a global culture that prepares the human species to take it to the next evolutionary leap. I'm sorry, I don't know why I couldn't say that. This new leap
Oh,
will include the design and development of a whole new species based on the human genotype and soul. Well, that's interesting. The
yeah.
human species is but one of a countless number of sentient life forms that unerringly grow and expand in diversity throughout the cosmos. It is but an atom in the body of the collective God or source. Within its consciousness, humankind is limited by its perception of the universe, of wholeness by its over reliance on the 5 senses. The time capsules we have left behind provide technology, art, and philosophy, indeed, an entire language that will, in time, develop 2 additional senses of the human instrument, which would give us 7 senses, right?
Yeah. So,
And
we have our sixth sense, right? Our sixth
right.
sense that we all
Well,
kind of have now.
it's gonna say that here. The genetic composition of the human species was conceived to have 7 senses. You have in recent times begun to refer to the 6th sense as the sense of intuition. There is
Yep.
a 7th and most powerful sense, and it is the sense that is linked to time travel, which is linked to space travel. However, before these 2 additional senses of the human instrument can be fully activated, there must be a global culture representing a unified and fully integrated Earth. That makes so much sense,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
So, yeah. And so essentially what they're saying here is once we enter into the Galactic Federation, that's where we're going to end up with that last sentence that you just talked about, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have to be able to feel each other, to be have compassion for each other and for everything. Because if there's
Very,
no
very,
compassion and there's no heart, how are we going to move together into the future?
very, very well put. And one other thing, respect. You know,
Yes.
the respect
Well,
has to
that
be there,
that
right?
feeds into it like love and
Yeah,
respect. They're kind of together.
absolutely. So well put. Beautifully put.
So am I reading this whole page or
No, just I guess we just wanted to point out that this is who wrote it. The
oh,
underlying part at the bottom there, right?
Jay Sothers, Managing Director, Special Projects ACIO.
So that's who wrote this memorandum. Of course, we're on show number which one are we on? 3?
3.
So we're on 3 now. A lot of this memorandum would have been the end of the last show, number 2, essentially.
Mm.
So
Okay.
we're just diving through all the papers. So now we're
We're
going
just circling
into,
back. Okay.
yeah. So now we're diving into another paper, but this was, and I'll just let you read it.
Yeah,
It's
William
underlined.
Stevens the chief scientist of the Ancient Arrow Project, is writing this part. So this is
Yeah.
interesting. This is one of my favorite like subjects, really. This memorandum
Mhm.
will focus on 2 objectives: placing the artifacts found at the Ancient Arrow site in the context of current BST initiatives, yes, and 2, describing the presumed purpose of the various artifacts found within each of the 23 chambers. Um, I think for purpose of this memorandum, it would be better to begin with the description of the artifacts and follow up with the description of how we of the scientific core contemplate how artifacts may be utilized in our current BST initiatives, which is blank slate technology.
Yes. Yeah.
So yes, chamber paintings. We've successfully decoded about 65% of the glyphs and symbolic structure of the paintings. The paintings have an incredible detail, and their coloration is brilliant. Each of the chamber paintings has a similar color palette and artistic style. This style is truly unique. While none of our scientists with the Labyrinth Group can claim to be an art critic, everyone who has seen the paintings firsthand have been utterly amazed at their color and detail. And then I guess I have to go to the next page. I think that one of the best ways to describe them is that they have a hypnotic effect on the viewer, even when viewed through photographs, but particularly when seen in person within the chambers themselves. Yeah, I can only imagine being
Yeah,
right
me too.
there,
Me too. Me
seeing
too. I
them.
would love
Yeah.
that.
About a third of the glyphs contained on the paintings can be traced to 4 different extinct languages: Chacobson, Anasazi, Sumerian, and Mayan. However, the remaining glyphs have absolutely no corollary to any other pictographic language that we are aware of. Also, the glyphs found at the AA site were completely different than those found within the chamber paintings. It is interesting to notice that the technology artifacts within chambers 2 and 5 can contain glyphs represented in paintings found in chambers 1 and 7.
So it's
So, yeah.
interesting about the Anasazi, the
Mm.
Sumerian, the Mayan, and the one other group that I know I asked you and
Chagabasan. Yeah, I
to
think I
look
looked
up
that up and
once.
I couldn't really find anything on them. So yeah,
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 it's an extinct language.
yeah,
That's what that is. Yeah.
yep. So we are certain that the paintings were completed using unspecified paints and an application technique requiring special tools. Chemical analysis of the paint show conclusively that hybrid compounds of selenium, gypsum, and gemsonite were used on all of the paintings. The same polymer coating that was applied throughout the interior of the AA site was also applied over the paintings. This was done in a single layer and has cohesion about 100 times greater than our best derivatives formulated at our Donner lab. They are perfectly rectangular with sharp edges that seem meticulously prepared, as if purposeful in its mathematical precision. Many of the paintings include depictions of the stars, the consistent and telltale sign of the constellation Taurus, and of particular interest, the 7th, or the lost cluster of Pleiades, is represented. Owens believes it may relate to the WingMakers' place of origin and time of entry to Earth. Wow, that's really interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to say that, yeah, the Pleiades for sure. But again, we believe, or I believe, that this is actually the Cedars from the Intergalactic Confederation, and the Pleiades would be only one of them. There's 23 in total, so there's 22 more as well,
Right.
right? I
Interesting.
think
Yeah.
they're all
Yeah.
involved. I believe.
Yeah. There's 23 cedars, right? And there's
Yes,
20,
there's 24 seaters, but
oh,
that
24.
includes the primary mammal that was used. So you're correct in saying that there are 23, and I finally got that figured out. Hopefully, Elena, I'm right. If I'm wrong, you're probably going to let me know. That's good.
Well,
But I
the
think I have that
23,
correct.
there are 23 chambers and 23
Yeah.
seaters. So, you know, kind of a correlation there. Interesting.
Yeah.
In the construction of the technologies, the most common metal is a form of synthetic beryllium, and the most common mineral is quartz, or a synthetic variant. This synthetic quartz is extremely conductive and has properties that seem responsive to human touch and thought. Spectral analysis of the quartz artifacts demonstrate that it is an amplifier of thought waves, but we cannot program the amplification. It is completely spurious and unpredictable. Under extreme magnification, the quartz is impregnated with a form of nanotechnology that we've never seen before. This technology appears to act as the digital nervous system for the artifact, while the synthetic quartz acts as its power supply and amplification system. Human genetics have been implanted into all of the quartz artifacts.
Okay, so
Interesting.
that is very interesting.
Yeah.
The fact that human genetics are all programmed in there, of course, we know, like, for example, my Arcturian starship, my genetics are part of the ship. And that's why, like, I'm the commander of it. So, um, only me and the crew are capable of probably even getting on the ship, nonetheless turning it on and making it work. So this is interesting that the human genetics are built in, and a lot of what they said about it being a power supply and amplification for human thoughts is pretty interesting, to say the least, right?
Right. So the next one, um, their wall paintings are clearly designed to convey a set of messages, and we know we now, I think, should say, we now believe that their purpose may be to facilitate the unlocking of the optical disc. We also believe that the order of the paintings may have significance. The factors and relevant variables in our analysis are the following, in no particular order of importance: the wall painting's apparent story, the wall painting symbols, the wall painting's colors and relative shapes, the wall painting star patterns, its geographical landmarks, its subject matter, relative size, relative order in the 23 chambers, its position on the chamber wall, and its relative distance from each other, the possible relationship between the wall painting and the artifacts in the chamber. So, okay, all of the chambers, wall paintings, artifacts, pictographs, etc., seem to be designed as part of a master plan, and we're operating under the assumption that this master plan is a time capsule or communication bridge of some sort. After a thorough cleaning, the wall paintings are remarkable for their brilliant color and detail, probably due to the arid environment and the fact that the paint materials themselves are chemical compounds our scientists have never seen. Presumably, these paints have superior molecular bonding properties.
So it's interesting when they said that it's a time capsule, which we know, but a communication bridge of sorts. So
Yes.
some of the information that we're, talking about is indeed going to bridge sort of the gap between the old world and the new world of physics and science. And we're bringing it out in on your Patreon channel, especially, but also on the YouTube channel, which this is going to be on as well too. But yeah, it's just interesting that they say that it's a communication bridge, because I was talking about intervention points that they use in time to make things happen. And
Right.
I believe that we're on one of these paths right now as we speak. It's the both of
Yes.
us in this journey that we're taking, essentially, right?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. It's definitely an intervention point. I feel like right now, this year, especially 2024, is a
Yeah,
very significant year. Okay, in this section, you will find two of the five interviews conducted between Anne and Dr. Anderson back in 1997, in December 1997.
yeah. So
And
that's a good point, that there's only two of
Yeah.
5. So we have less than half the information. So, and look at what we have. Can you imagine what is
Mm.
actually, if we could get a hold of these other 3 and find out what is there, right? But I don't know if that's going to
Right.
happen. It's
And
a
it says
long time.
here at it says at the present July 1998. Dr. Anderson has not been heard from for nearly 5 months, but it is hoped that additional interviews will be able to be conducted in the near future. And of course, was that because did they ever happen? Yeah, 2 of the 5. No, they didn't happen. So there were already 5 interviews done. So there were
Yeah,
no other interviews after this,
no, yeah. So
unfortunately.
there's 3 missing essentially,
Yeah,
right?
3 missing.
Yeah,
Yeah, from
yeah.
that year, I guess. I would assume they were all from 97.
They were, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
right. What follows is a session I recorded of Dr. Anderson on December 27th, 1997, 2 days after Christmas. This was first of 5 interviews that I was able to tape record before he left or disappeared. Okay, interesting.
So we think, or 2 possibilities: they got rid of him, or they brought him back into the project and wiped his memory, like he was worried about. That's why he
I
actually came
I
forward
think
to
there's a
do
third
this.
possibility, to be honest, and
What
I'm going to
what's
stick
that?
with it, and that is that I believe that he could have been taken by the Wingmakers and
Oh,
actually, kept safe, and
that
maybe possibly being helped by them in some way. That's my
that
third, and
is,
that's hopeful, and that's what I think it is.
I like it. I like it actually.
I
And
like to stay
he,
optimistic.
yeah, and he was made the spokesperson for them. So you never know,
Right,
right? Maybe they
right.
saw the opportunity and jumped in and helped them.
That's what I'm feeling
You're
anyway. Just
you're
my hunch.
forever the optimist, that's for
I
sure.
am.
And we love you for that. Absolutely. I love you for that. Always. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I am able to speak over 30. Okay, this is Dr. Anderson. I am able to speak over 30 different languages fluently and another 12 or so languages that are officially extinct. That's really cool. I
Yeah.
have been involved in the Ancient Arrow project from its very inception when the ACIO took over the project from the NSA. Interesting. I was initially involved in the site discovery and its restoration, along with a team of 7 other scientists from the ACIO. We restored each of the 23 chambers of the Wingmakers time capsule and cataloged all of their attendant artifacts. I was particularly vexing process because, oh, it was a particularly vexing process because an optical disc was found in the 23rd chamber and it was impregnable to our technologies. I decided to leave the project after I was successful in deducing the access code for the optical disc. Shortly thereafter, I became aware of what I can only describe as the presence of the Wingmakers. I felt as though they were visiting me, even assisting me in my work. This is why I believe that he's still with them right now.
Yeah.
Right here.
And
That's why.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I'd almost have to say that sometimes we're being assisted in our work too, Ligia.
Yeah.
Um, is it the
I
wing
feel it
makers?
sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, I can feel it too. There's definitely times, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really amazing. I mean,
It's mind-boggling.
I feel like a lot of people are being assisted right now
Oh,
all over the
yes.
globe, all over the world.
Oh, yes.
And
Absolutely.
it's just a very important time that we're living in right now. So uh definitely guided,
Yes.
and that's awesome.
Well said
Um
again.
it was almost as though the struggle to decode their language was exercising a part of my brain or nervous system that was enabling me to communicate with them. Yeah.
I'll just stop you there for a quick second because you know that when I dove into this, I became fully engulfed in it, and
Yeah.
that affecting your nervous system, uh, I can understand that part because it happened to me twice. The first time I did it in 2015, 2016, and then just this last month or so, right? Um,
Yes.
it affects you
It
in a
also,
good kind of
yeah,
way
in a
though.
good way, in a good way.
Yeah,
And what they're saying is that it was enabling him to communicate with them. And I feel that anybody who reads the Wingmakers with a pure heart and an open mind will get the same kind of downloads from them, because
absolutely.
I feel like that's what happened to me and my friend. I won't speak for her right now, but I'm sure that she's would agree with me because we both had these at the same time, and we were both reading the materials at the same time, and all of a sudden we were like, "Whoa!"
Right,
Um,
yeah, the
stuff
friend that,
is
yeah, you talked about, yeah, yeah,
stuff started gravitating to us. Things, esoteric books started finding me and her, and just
uh,
information started coming to us without us
yeah,
hardly even trying to find. We weren't even trying to find it; it was just coming to us.
yeah,
And that's it. You can have downloads where they're psychic downloads, where you're just it just words pop into your head and things come to your mind. But you can also have the kind where just information comes to you through regular sources as well, like books and movies and whatever just happen to find you.
that
So
that is what happens to me all the time,
yeah,
continuously, is exactly that. And not only
right.
that, it's also the people too, because remember, a year ago at this time, I don't think I knew you yet, right?
No, I don't think
So
so.
it
No.
was, yeah, it was probably a couple more months before I had met you. I think it was March or April or something. And but just the groups and the people that gravitate towards us. So it's not only the information, but it's actually the people as well too,
Right.
right?
You're absolutely right about that. It's definitely the people.
Yeah,
Because of the groups that we've come together. And I've told other people, that have wanted to understand this information and they feel alone. Um, I, or they access this information and they feel alone. I'm like, your soul group is out there,
yeah,
and your soul group will find you.
yeah,
You'll find your
definitely.
soul group. And I feel like we have found ours,
We
and
definitely
very,
have. Yeah.
very blessed to have the soul group that we do. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes. And that's also, you also have to realize too that that's why we're doing this right now, this Wingmakers, so that if someone out there is into it and but feeling alone and not wanting to talk about it or not knowing who to talk about with, then we're there. You can reach out to us, like Lee just says. Ligia
right.
always tries to get back to comments and everything. I know she tremendously tries to do that, and she can send them my direction as well too, right? For sure.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're here. I'm here to
absolutely.
listen mostly. I'm not always really good at talking, but I'm good at listening. So, and I'm not going to think you're weird or, you know, you know, judge you in any way. I don't do that. So, but
No,
I
no.
will definitely listen.
Yeah,
Anyway, I began to hear them speaking to me, but then one day I was working on a chamber painting and I saw something move in the painting. One of the symbols moved, and it was absolutely not an illusion. Then I realized that the wingmakers could interact with me, that they were time traveling to my time, and that somehow their paintings were actually portals in which they moved through time. It's so cool.
I know, right?
I
Because
love
of
that
course,
part.
Liege's most favorite thing is time travel and multi-dimensional
Portals.
portals, but thinking in multiple dimensions too, because
Right. It's a
many
spiritual
times,
portal. It's like
yeah,
a yeah. You can just by looking at a painting, you can travel through time. It's so true. And we do it all the time. Like looking at movies, looking at old movies, from the past. That's time traveling. You're
the
not
airship
like
one, right?
yes, I mean all of those they're not literally right there, but it sure feels like it. And it's a form of time travel. It's really not what we think time travel is, but if you showed a movie to somebody from 3 or 400 years ago, we're assuming they didn't have movies back then. We don't really know because we don't know what our true history is anymore, but if they
Yeah,
didn't and you showed them a movie, they would be like, "Oh, wow, this is time travel." They could
yeah,
think that easily. So anyway,
totally
I
true. Yeah.
go I I say too much sometimes. Um okay, okay, it was then that I began to hear their instructions, or more precisely, their thoughts. I was given mental images on how to use the Sumerian language to decode their own symbol pictures. That's really cool. I listened to the
Yes,
voices because it seemed plausible what I was being instructed to do. When I finished with the access code and it worked, I knew then that I was indeed communicating with them. And
Very
then she
cool.
asks, "Did you tell anyone? I mean, about the fact that you were communicating with the Wingmakers?" And he said, "I kept it a secret.
Mhm.
I went about my business and began developing the translation indexes for 8,000 pages of text that was discovered within the optical disc."
That's a lot of information.
As yes, as I started the process of translating the optical disc, I began to see fragment images of the Wingmakers, sort of like a holographic image that would appear and then disappear in a matter of seconds. They visited me a total of 3 times, always in my home at night, and told me that I had been selected to be their liaison or spokesperson.
Wow,
Tell me
great.
about 15. What was he like? Um, 15 was was a pawn of the Cordium. That's why he mentions him here before I say anything more about 15, but he was already a part of the Cordium, a pawn of them when this was going on. 15 is a genius of unparalleled intelligence and knowledge. He is the leader of the Labyrinth Group and has been since its inception in 1963. He was only 22 years old when he joined the ACIO in 1956. I think he was discovered early enough before he had a chance to establish a reputation in academic circles. He was a renegade genius who wanted to build computers that would be powerful enough to time travel. Can you imagine how a goal like that in the mid 50s must have sounded to his professors? I
No
mean,
doubt.
wow.
And you got to remember that in the 50s, that's when Alan Turing actually developed the first programs and then computers using vacuum tubes. And the
Wow.
Turing wave, of course, some quantum kinetics is named after him, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
also in the 50s is when Howard Menger was being visited.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
also like a little bit later when the Amitsia in Italy visited the Stefano Breccia, or however you say his name. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff
Yeah.
happening at that
And
time. So
and Val Thor in
and
1954 met with
right,
Eisenhower. He
right.
spent 3 years in total, and then a bunch more time in Russia as well, too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So okay, 15 came to the ACIO through an alliance that it had with Bell Labs. Somehow, Bell Labs heard about his genius and hired him, but he quickly outpaced their research agenda and wanted to apply his vision of time travel. Why was he so interested in time travel? Like, that's a silly question. Why wouldn't you be? I mean, duh.
Only Ligia
Uh,
could say that. That's too funny.
The accepted purpose was to develop blank slate technology, or BST. BST is a form of time travel that enables the rewrite of history at what are called intervention points. Okay, well, I would really,
Boom.
that's a really interesting reason to want to time travel. Um,
Yeah.
but I
So
mean,
we're on
maybe
an
we're
intervention
on
point right
yeah,
now.
we're an insertion point. We're an intervention point right now. And that
Yeah.
is like you would have had to have some kind of, I would think, foreknowledge to know that you need to have an intervention point. How would he have known that?
From looking into the future, they
Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
So
that's
he
exactly what
already knew
happened.
about time travel when he was interested in it in the 50s. He had to have.
Well, think about it this way too, Legia. For example, my galactic heritage is pretty crazy, and the Arcturian starship, I would have known about time travel when I was born
Right.
because of who I am in my higher self. I'm the commander of an Arcturian starship.
Right.
So right, so it could have been the same thing for him, I guess, is my point,
True.
right?
Right. It's just
Right.
ingrained in him. And it's just like the movie Tenant, where there is no time. It's
Yeah.
just the time is linear, but it's not. So
Well, everything
anyway,
happens at once, actually, is what happened.
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So it's really he knew about it from outside of time. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
BST is the most advanced technology, and clearly anyone who is in possession of BST can defend themselves against any aggressor. It is, as 15 was fond of saying, the freedom key. Remember that the ACIO was the primary interface with extraterrestrial technologies and how to adapt them into mainstream society as well as military applications. We were exposed to ETs and knew of their agenda. Some of these ETs scared the hell out of the ACIO.
Because
They
they were
were
dealing with some of the bad ones, unfortunately, right?
right. There were agreements between our government, specifically the NSA, to cooperate with an ET species commonly called the Greys in
There you go.
exchange for their cooperation to stay hidden and conduct their biological experiments under the cloak of secrecy. There were certain groups of Greys that looked upon humans in much the same way as we look upon laboratory animals.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, that's the
Uh,
problem.
15 was approached by the Greys in his role at the ACIO, and they desired to provide a full scale technology transfer program. But 15 turned them down. He had already
Interesting.
established a TTP with the Cordium, and he felt that the Greys were too fractured organizationally to make good on their promises. Furthermore, the Cortium technology was superior in most regards to the Greys, with the possible exception of the Greys' memory implant and their genetic hybridization technologies. Wow.
Yeah, right. So he had some sense to stay away from them to a certain point, but I think they had, because of those agreements that were made with Eisenhower behind his back, essentially. And that's what Val Thor was trying to say. Don't do this. That's sort of the outcome of it all, essentially. But
Right.
15 had to deal with them because they were there, essentially, right?
Yeah. I think that's why 15 didn't trust the Greys. He felt they had used communication to manipulate outcomes to their own best interest in favor of shared interests. Yeah. And we have seen what happens as a result of that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, not no bueno. How did 15 become the leader of both the ACIO and the Labyrinth Group? He was the director of research in 1958 when the Cordium first became known to the ACIO. The Cordium instantly took a liking to him, and one of the 15's first decisions was to utilize the Cortium intelligence accelerator technologies on himself.
Interesting. I
Wow.
don't know if I would do that or not. I might, I
Uh,
suppose.
well, he had to know something, right? To know that it was okay.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, he had some foreknowledge, I think.
yeah.
15 was enough of a renegade that he enlisted the help of the Cordium to establish the Labyrinth Group. The Cordium were equally interested in BST for the similar reasons as 15. The Freedom Key, as it was sometimes called, was established as the prime agenda of the Labyrinth Group, and the Cordium and 15 were its initial members. Over the next several years, 15 selected the cream of the crop from the scientific core of the ACIO to undergo a similar intelligence accelerator program as he had, with the intention of developing a group of scientists that could, in cooperation with Cortium, successfully invent BST, blank slate technology,
So I
which
wonder if we should ask Dave if we can do that intelligence accelerator program.
ah, it's
Just
interesting that
right?
there is a blank slate technology out there right now being used by the DoD.
Yes, that's right. You brought that up last time, I believe it
Yes,
was
yeah, on the first one, I think. Yeah,
on the
that
first one. Yeah,
freaked me out pretty much.
yeah.
Yeah,
I know when you showed it to me, I was like, "Ooh!"
yeah, and by the DoD, right?
By the deal.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
He has a vision that is unique in that it is a blueprint for the creation of BST. What makes BST such an imperative to 15 and the Labyrinth Group? Okay. Uh, The accepted purpose was to develop blank slate technology. BST is a form of time travel that enables the rewrite of history at what we called intervention points. Wait, did I already read this? No. We already talked about intervention points. That's why I'm getting confused. BST is
Yeah,
the most advanced technology, and clearly anyone who is in possession of BST can defend themselves against any aggressor. It is, as 15 was fond of saying, the freedom key. Remember that the ACIO was the primary interface with the extraterrestrial technologies and how to adapt them into mainstream society as well as military applications. We were exposed to ETs and knew of their agenda. Some of these ETs scared the hell out of the ACIO.
I think yeah, you're rereading stuff.
Is that
We
Yeah,
should
is
be
this
on
the
page
same? I
7.
don't
We
know.
should be on page 7
I don't
right now.
remember that part. Okay, yeah, okay. All right, you're right. Five,
Yeah,
we're on 5. How did we
Yeah,
get
well,
all the way
we
over
already read
to that? Yeah.
5.
How did that happen?
We already read 5. We're on 7, or
Okay,
the
here we are.
bottom of 6, I think, right?
Uh, bottom of 6. What makes
What
BST
makes,
such an imperative to 15 in the labyrinth group is where we were. Yeah. I don't know how we
yes,
got over to 5. All right.
no problem, we
You
got her.
see, time travel can be accomplished by the soul from an observational level. That is to say, that certain individuals can move into the realm of what we call vertical time and see future events with great clarity. Vertical
Yep,
time.
yes.
Uh, but they are powerless to change them. There are also individuals who have, in our opinion, come into contact with the WingMakers and are provided messages about the future,
Hmm.
which they had recorded in symbol pictures or extinct languages like Sumerian, Mayan, and Chocobson.
Yep. There's a lot
Huh.
to unpack there. The vertical
Yeah.
time, this is the first time we talked about vertical time. These are those longitudinal waves that are in the z-axis that we talk about in Dave's group. Um,
Yes.
or,
Longitudinal waves.
yeah, how
Yep.
I explained it, how we play the harp. And so Dave kind of went with that, and that's exactly what it is. It's music. Everything is frequencies again,
Frequency. Yep.
right? And music,
Yep.
yeah.
Everything is sound.
Um, the other thing that's important here is they're saying that certain groups can accomplish this by using their soul.
Yes.
I would
On a
have
soul
to say
level.
that our astro travels in the past couple of weeks have proved that fact,
Yeah.
because we've gone back in time. I know that I went back to the Red Sea, for example. Um, so that would have been, quite a long time ago. And your example was the same thing, because we both started in the King's Chamber at Giza. We don't know exactly what time everything happened, but mine definitely was the parting of the Red Sea. So that puts a date as to when mine happened, right?
Right.
So that's just something that everyone can do. Also, it's just that you need to tune yourself and practice how
Hmm.
to make it happen, essentially. And
Yep.
Ligia is fantastic at it.
Oh.
I think it's
I don't know.
you're a natural, right? I think it's from before. You have to
Oh,
realize that, right?
maybe yes. Yeah, from
Yeah,
before. Yeah.
from before. Yeah, you've
Well,
done this before.
it's not, yes. It's not me like 3D me. It's my soul or my ether body or whatever you want to call it has done this before. Not this
Yeah. Well,
avatar, but
yeah, not
yeah,
this avatar, but maybe the
right.
avatar before this avatar, though.
Whatever, yeah, whenever it was.
Right? Yeah. Just we
Right.
don't know. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And as you open up your Akashic Records, people, which I highly recommend to everyone, then you start to learn about these things, like I did in the last year. I've learned
Right.
tremendous
Right.
things. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it says so you see time travel can be accomplished on soul level. That's what you were referring to, the soul level.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what that is.
Exactly. Because that's
Most
astral
of
travel.
most of the world's major libraries have collections of information that are not available to the general public. Yes.
Hmm.
Also, most of these original writings have never been published, being that they originated from a time before the printing press. That's a good point. There
Yes.
is
Very
a
good point.
network of secret organizations that are loosely connected through the financial markets and their interests in worldly affairs.
Who does that sound like?
I wonder who that is.
Yeah, exactly.
uh, you see, for most of them, the only game on this planet that is worth playing is the acquisition of ever increasing wealth and power through an orchestrated manipulation of the key variables that drive the economic engines of our world. That
Wow.
sounds so boring to me. I don't know why they want to do
Well,
that. It just
yeah,
doesn't make any
exactly.
sense.
Well, that's because we believe our soul is the most important thing, and they believe the dollar sign is.
Material. They
It,
believe it. They believe in the material world,
yeah,
the 3D
exactly.
world. That's what
The
they want.
3D world. Yeah, and
We're
money,
3D world
specifically
is
money.
going bye-bye, so they're gonna have to get
Got
used
that
to that.
right.
Um, they help fund the ACIO, This collective of organizations has enormous wealth, more than most governments can comprehend. Yes, because they own the governments. They're the corporations that own the governments. The ACIO also receives funding from the sale of its diluted technologies. Diluted technologies. They're diluted. They're not full power. They've
Yeah,
been diluted to these organizations for the sake of their own security and protection. Yes, so they dilute them for the sake of their own security and protection, right?
yeah. So they can't use them on
Yes.
them, right? Yeah,
Right. The reason they fund the ACIO is that they believe 15 is the most brilliant man alive, and they're aware of his general agenda to develop BST. But why the sudden interest in the WingMakers time capsule? Where are we back to? No, this is 9. Okay. How does it play a role in all of this BST stuff? You have to understand that the time capsule was a collection of 23 chambers, literally carved inside of a canyon wall in the middle of nowhere, about 80 miles north of Chaco Canyon in New Mexico. It is, without a doubt, the most amazing archaeological find of all time. Our preliminary assumptions were that this site was a time capsule of sorts left behind by an extraterrestrial race who had visited Earth in the 8th century. The only logical conclusion was that it represented a future version of humanity, which
yeah,
meant that they were not only time travelers, but they were also in possession of a form of BST. And then she
yeah.
asks,
So
why do you assume that they have BST? And he said, this would have required them to open and hold open a window of time and physically operate within the selected time frame. This is a fundamental requirement of BST.
yeah, so being able to I've seen portals open that you guys have worked with,
Yeah,
and that essentially is what they're talking about. But they're talking about holding it open long enough to build this cave and to do all
right.
this artwork and and they figured that it was at least 3 or 4 months
This
that
is
it
a
would take.
minimum of 2 months. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it could have taken years. Like we don't know,
I
right?
mean, knowing the technology that they have, it could have taken less because
That's
they
true
have the
too.
ability
Yeah,
to do things that we can't even comprehend. So, yeah.
that's
I
correct.
mean,
Yeah,
if you would try to explain a 3D printer to somebody, 50 years ago, they would have been like, what? That's not real.
yeah. and and
So,
they're and they're from the 28th century, so they're
right.
they're way ahead of us essentially, right?
Yeah. If they're using thought-based um, systems, like you can
Absolutely.
do things instantly, you
Yeah,
just manifest it with your mind. Like, and that's what they did with the pyramids. So, if they're have the same technology then now and then, and time isn't linear anyway, I mean, you know,
yeah,
anyway, I digress as usual.
that's
Uh,
good.
the ACIO placed its best resources on this project for more than 4 years. I posited the theory that the time capsule was an encoded communication device. I began to theorize that when one went through the effort to interact with the various symbol pictures, and immerse themselves in the time capsule's art and philosophy, it affected the central nervous system in a way that improved fluid intelligence. It was,
Okay.
in my opinion. Oh,
Sorry
go
to
ahead.
interrupt, but I was just going to say that having read through this multiple times now,
Yeah.
there is something to that improving your fluid
Oh, yeah.
intelligence.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So, oh no, it was, in my opinion, the principal goal of the time capsule to boost fluid intelligence so that BST was not only able to be developed, but also utilized.
Yeah.
So, BST is a specific form of time travel. As advanced in technology as the Cordium and Greys are, they have yet to produce the equivalent of BST. They are able to time travel in its elemental form, but they can't interact with the time that they travel to. So they can go look at the time period, but they can't interact with it.
Yeah.
Uh, they cannot alter the events of the time because they are in a passive observational mode.
Yes.
So it would be
Very good.
almost like flying above the earth, looking down at it and saying, "Oh, look at that." But you can't really interact with it in any way.
So what is that? That's remote viewing,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
right?
Remote viewing, you don't affect anything that you're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can be viewed though. If you're remote viewing, they can see you.
Yeah, they can if they want to. Yeah.
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 The Labyrinth Group has conducted 7 time travel experiments over the past 30 years. There were some of us who were involved in the translation indexes of the Wingmakers who began to feel that that was the nature of the time capsule, to enhance fluid intelligence and activate new sensory inputs that were critical to the BST experience. Yes.
Yeah.
They claimed that the 3-dimensional 5 sensory domain that humans have adjusted to is the reason we are only using a fractional portion of our intelligence. They claimed that the time capsule would be the bridge from the 3-dimensional 5 sensory domain to the multi-dimensional 7 sensory domain.
Hmm.
In my opinion, they were saying that in order to apply BST, the traveler needed to operate from the multi-dimensional 7 sensory domain. Otherwise, BST was the proverbial camel through the eye of the needle, in other words, impossible. So yeah, you have to be in this multi-dimensional 7 sensory domain in order
Yeah.
to access this.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
that's why we're doing this right now, Ligia. We're trying to help everyone's frequency rise so that universal consciousness will rise and we can all get to the same level because we
Yeah.
get to these levels by bringing each other up. It's
Yes.
us that does it,
It's a
and
collective
it's
consciousness. It's not
exactly.
one
Yep.
person gets ahead and the other people don't. Everybody gets ahead. We're
Yes.
we're not leaving anybody behind. We're
Correct.
we're not trying to anyway. It's like if you want to come with us, we have our hands extended, like, come on, I'm not, we're just not trying to kick you in the face, say, no, 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 we got this. No, no, no. It's not about that.
No, no,
Yeah.
definitely not. Yeah, that's the whole reason why we're doing is to bring everyone with us,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah,
For 15,
absolutely.
it was hard to believe that a time capsule could activate or construct a bridge that would lead someone to become a time traveler or become a traveler. The other outcome of immersion in the time capsule's contents was a sense of loyalty to the Wingmaker's philosophy and approach to life. I found myself becoming less and less technology centric and more spiritually focused.
Yay!
Yes,
Sorry.
I felt myself more of an advocate of the Wingmakers. I was sympathetic to what I construed as the Wingmakers' agenda and what was, or perhaps more appropriately, their agenda, in your opinion. And this is the good part. In my opinion, their agenda is to activate through their time capsules the new consciousness that enables BST. I believe the Wingmakers are trying to help us develop our consciousness, our human abilities, so that
Beautiful.
we're able to utilize BST successfully as a defensive weapon. As a defensive weapon, not as one to try to hurt anybody with, but to protect ourselves like a bubble.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yes.
exactly. And I can say that knowing what the Galactic Federation and Intergalactic Confederation has done for us, they've taken all these timelines and moved us all into one general timeline. And
Right.
that's so that they can control what happens in the future. And so that this is how we know that we're truly going to win this battle is because they've already seen that we've won it and
Yes.
they know how we did it by going backwards, right? And knowing where those intervention points are most appropriate. And we're on an intervention point right now by bringing this to you, literally, um,
Yes.
especially the Wingmakers. And also in the future, we're going to do the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And there is some incredible information in there that correlates straight back to subquantum kinetics, the Turing wave, ether physics, and the whole 9 yards. So it all intertwines and intermingles into a package that we're bringing towards you guys and saying, here, this is an intervention point. Everyone, there's so many people. There's 1,500 ships right now in our solar system. that are helping us. Part of them are from the Intergalactic Confederation. My ship is here. I know that because I can feel her. Um, there's many groups helping us. Many that can't even be named because there's so many of them, right? Which is
Yes.
beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so where was
So
I? Oh, but if the wing makers
I
are
think
time
I think
travelers,
oh, we're on the fourth one. So that's the
oh,
end
this
of
is
it.
the next one?
Yeah, so
Oh,
we're
this,
on to that'll be next
oh,
week,
that'll be the
or
next one. Oh, I'm jumping ahead. Okay.
you are,
Ooh,
yeah.
I'm giving them a tease.
Um, you're trying to time travel a little bit ahead of times there, Ligia. That's what you're
I'm
doing.
traveling ahead
And that's
to the
normal for
future.
Ligia because Ligia works in not only does she does the astral travel thing, but she does it in multiple dimensions too, which is not normal, by the way, but it's just beautiful though.
Well,
Beautiful
no,
thing.
nothing I do is normal, so it's fine.
That's for sure.
Normal is
That is,
boring.
ain't that the truth? Yeah,
So, yeah. So, thank you everyone once again for joining us with the Wingmakers. I know that I really look forward to this, and several of you have told me that you really enjoy the Wingmakers, so it's a pleasure to bring it to you. And Ed, as ever, as always, thank you for all of your efforts that you put into this and for presenting your brilliance and your insights, and thank you. I appreciate it.
you're welcome. Yeah,
As we
I
all
really
do.
appreciate. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on all the time too to talk about all this really cool stuff. And yeah, and there's just so much more to come in the future. Of course, we have the Chris Bascar interview coming up sometime this year. I know that Chris is having the first time that Chris will ever be live is at I think it's in May, and it's the Contact in the Desert. And that is the first time that David Wilcock is going to be there for the last 5 years. He's been there
Wow.
before. So that's all happening. And we hope to hear from Chris either before or after that. We're not sure, but we know for sure that there's a lot more information coming out of Stavati this year as to do with the hover car, but also to do with the free energy uh, little power plants that they're going to have. And I don't know if those are going to come first or not. We're going to have to ask Chris actually about that.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, that'll be fascinating stuff. So looking forward to it, and thank you for sharing that information with us. Also, just to remind everyone, you can find me on Patreon at Potentials Podcast, and also on X on Mondays. Usually every Monday I do a remote healing. 30-minute remote healing, and it's a space I have on X, so you can look me up at Generating Potentials on X, and I will be doing a remote healing. It's usually at 8 p.m. on Monday nights. So feel free to
and
join me
having
that.
said that, I've been there a few times, Ligia, and it's wonderful and it works.
Thank
It
you.
definitely helps. It works. It's
Yes,
wonderful. It's beautiful.
that's great to hear.
I can feel Ligia's love bubble from there to here.
Well, we all have these huge love bubbles, and the thing is that I like to include everyone. So we all
Yeah,
in the remote healing, we learn how to heal ourselves, and we do it with each other. We all come together, and so all of our healing bubbles are connected, and it's amazing. We just try to heal not just ourselves, but the world, the entire Earth, the
yeah.
galaxy, the all of the galaxies, the universe, all of the universes. I just try to go as far out as we can, and
And she does.
as inside as we can too, and get into the most intricate inside of ourselves that we can, because they're both the same, really.
Yeah.
It's just the middle, our bodies are the 0 point. But anyway, I
And
digress
and
again.
have and having said that, what was I going to say about that? The I think it was the last time that you did your healing thing. There were four of us, and I totally felt when all of our souls connected. And then actually, I think I felt connection with you first because I went to your direction, towards the south, and then I felt the other two connect right away. And that's the first time that I've ever felt that, other than the day that I brought my ship in, when I my heart stopped, essentially.
Wow.
So I'd felt that same feeling then. So it was really, really cool, having said that. So everyone should check it out. It's super
Thank
awesome.
you. Thanks, Ed. Well, thank you everyone again, and we will see you next time. Um, I will look forward to it, and more wing makers on the way. We're gonna fly this ship in right now and say ciao for now.